And Trevor, let's get to the defense. This is an interesting one. And look, the first one is real simple, Trevor. When you're playing the Navy triple option, it's the first number one. It's actually we have actually 7 keys to victory. The first one is be disciplined on the D line. Second one is be disciplined at linebacker. Third one is be disciplined at safety. Fourth one is be disciplined at corner. And then we'll get into the other 3 here later. But honestly, be disciplined. Discipline does not mean not aggressive. Discipline means whatever your job is, you've got to stick to your job, and you've got to do it fast, and you've got to do it hard, and that's going to be a big key. But this is the type of offense, you make one mistake, it's a 50-yard gain on a cutback on a trap play. You make one mistake, they're getting outside for 30. You make one mistake, a 3rd and 10 gets converted on a handoff or a pitch. This is a game where you have to be disciplined against Navy, not passive, disciplined. They're very, very different things.
Navy thrives on undisciplined defenses, man. I mean, that's where they feast. We've talked all week about how explosive of an offense it is. And it's not because they just say, all right, our guys are better than yours, and we're just going to go out and throw it over the top of you. And we have a couple of backs that you just physically can't tackle no matter what you want to do. They thrive on putting defenders in a bind where it's one of those where, it's a one-on-one matchup. They kind of have somebody that they have to choose one or the other, the defender, I mean, and they have a quarterback that makes smart decisions. So being assignment correct and disciplined, and I think you said something that's very crucial, do it at 100%, right? If you are going to make a mistake, make sure that it's not because you're just lost in space and you're kind of just out there looking around, waiting to see what happens. So I agree. Has to be disciplined. That can't come at a sacrifice to speed and aggressiveness. Absolutely.
I believe, Trevor, with the size advantage, the power advantage, the speed advantage Notre Dame has, if they're disciplined, I do think they can shut Navy down to some degree, where Navy will get a couple big plays, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, but they're not going to be able to consistently gash you snap after snap after snap. That's going to be a key, right? Is if you play fast and you play disciplined football, I think you can shut this offense down to some degree. I don't think it's going to be like 6 points like it was was it 2021? They won 34-6. This is a much better Navy offense than that. More talented, better coach, better scheme, not as one-dimensional as it was back then. But I think you can slow it down, in my opinion, in a big way if you're able to be disciplined. But the discipline has to be countered with number 2, Trevor, and that is you've got to be aggressive and you've got to dominate the trenches. And the way you dominate the trenches is to have an aggressive game plan. Aggressive doesn't mean blitzing every down. You don't want to blitz the option, right? I don't think you don't want to, because if they catch you in the wrong blitz, it's going to go for a big play. They're going to run the duck play underneath, and it's going to go for a big play. They're going to have a trap play called, and you're blitzing this way, and it's going to go for a big play. It's more about coming off and bullying the Navy offensive line. Don't let them get to the second level. Force them, work them back with your power and aggressiveness. And the big thing is dominating in the trenches and being aggressive, to me, does to the triple the 2 things that are just kryptonite to the triple. Number 1, creates negatives. You don't want to get behind the sticks when you're running an option offense, right? Even one that can throw the ball like they can. And number 2, and this is a big one, is it speeds all the decision making up. I learned this the one thing, I ran a triple option for a year in college, hated it, but ran it, and I coached in it for 2 years as well. And this was always kryptonite to us. And every time Notre Dame does this to Navy or Air Force or Army, it's the same thing. And it's what Stanford used to do to Chip Kelly. Whenever Stanford under Jim Harbaugh would have success against Oregon, it was because they did this. When you speed up the decision-making of the quarterback, you're able to fly to the football a lot more effectively. So instead of him pitching that ball out over the slot, you're making him pitch that ball at the end of the line of scrimmage. You're making him have to get that pull out real fast so everybody knows he can't ride that dive because that fullback's getting blown up, and you got to get that sucker out of there quick. You know what I mean? When you force them to declare where the ball's going as quickly as possible, you then allow your defense to fly to the football. When they're able to go on those long rides, do that power read wide, carry the speed option out a lot further, get downhill, pitching off of the edge, that's when their offense gets rolling. and the quarterback can let plays develop, let the receiver. Hey, you can't throw the long wheel route if your quarterback's getting his back put on the ground. You know what I mean? So being aggressive, attacking this defense, not with pressures and blitzes and stunts and all that, but just come off hard, come off fast, and force them to declare early. That is kryptonite to an option offense. Not a triple option, an option offense. That includes what Chip Kelly did at Oregon. That includes what Air Force does. That includes what Army does. That includes what Navy does. That includes what Stanford does. Right? That was a big part of the success they had against Stanford was they forced Ashton Daniels to make fast decisions, and it resulted in him making some wrong decisions, which led to some turnovers. That's a big part of this, in my opinion, Trevor, is be aggressive, force them to declare as quickly as possible.
Riley Mills and Howard Cross need to go out and play like the preseason 2 top 10 interior defensive linemen that they were graded out at. And we've started to see that over the last couple of weeks. You know, they started to come on a little bit against Louisville, and I think they really turned it on for Stanford and Georgia Tech, and they're going to be needed just as much this week as others. It's awesome that Gabriel Rubio is coming back, and they still have Donovan Heinisch, but you don't want to be in a position where like your 2 veteran guys, your 2 starters are kind of having an off game, and Gabriel Rubio is thrust into a role where he's ending up having to play 35, 40 snaps when maybe he was really only intended to play that, 25-ish range. So you want to make sure that the interior of the defensive line is as disruptive as they have been over the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be paramount for what Navy likes to do on offense, man. Couldn't agree more.
They've been playing so well lately.
Mm-hmm.
If they can keep that rolling, Navy's going to have a tough time.
Man.
Yeah. They're going to have a tough time, Trevor. I mean, it's just look, there's some things that are kind of universal in football. And I don't care what offense you run, whether you're running a triple option, a veer option, whether you're running the midline option, whether you're running a read zone, whether you're a drop back, throw it all over the field team, whether you're an air raid team, whether you're a spread, doesn't matter. You get dominated up the middle, you're going to have a hard time winning.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say hard time. You're going to have a hard time moving the ball with any kind of consistency.
Yeah.
It really is as simple as that. And those guys can have a big game. And it starts with Riley and Howard and obviously Donovan Heinisch and obviously Gabriel Rubio, but it's also about, Drake Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about Kingston, you know what I mean? And Jack Kaiser and Jaden Alsbury, those guys up the middle. I am fascinated to see what Notre Dame is going to do defensively. Fascinated. I am very curious to see how they're going to use all those linebackers. Like, would it shock you if we looked out like, is Drake Bowen, Kingston, Jack Kaiser, and Jaden Alsbury all on the field right now? You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't shock me if we saw something like that, Trevor. I mean, but how do you use them? I mean, is this a game where maybe there's some snaps where you have Jordan Clark at corner and you have Jaden Alsbury in the slot?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying full time, but I'm talking about as a wrinkle in certain situations when they're in certain personnel packages. You know what I mean? That's what you go to. It's going to be very fast because that's one thing Al Golden does a pretty good job of is matching personnel packages. And when they run guys in the field, they know exactly who's running on the field for Notre Dame. I'm very curious to see how they're going to match that one. So it's, it's going to be some. Tommy Guns just said 1-6-4 defense. That would make sense if Riley Mills and Howard Cross and Josh Burnham weren't such great matchups against this defense. And I'm going to tell you something else. I'm very curious to see how RJ Oben does in this game.
Me too.
Because he's been a little disappointing for me this season, but the way he has crashed off the edge in recent games, like you may say, hey, RJ, sick the fullback, man. You know what I mean? He's blown up some read zones the last couple of weeks, and forced that quarterback to kind of get outside quickly. But it could also be a game where he hasn't faced something like this, and how's he going to handle it? But I'm curious to see how they use him. You know what I mean? Like, do they have him? Nick in the chat says KV off the edge. I mean, that I don't like. I have a friend of mine who thinks they should go full Micah Parsons with Kingston and just put him on the edge. And I'm like, bro, I understand why you say that, but like this kid is an elite inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Keep doing with him what you're doing, which is inside linebacker on base downs and put him off the edge on third down. I'm fine with that. This would be a game where I would understand them saying in this particular game, we're going to put him on the edge. So it's going to be fat. And that's what's so great about this linebacking core, Trevor, because there's such unique skill sets. I mean, this could be a game where Would it shock you if you saw Jack Kaiser basically playing as in a 4-4 defense with Jack and Jaden Osbury playing outside
No.
and Kingston and Drake playing inside? I mean, or if you saw Jack and Drake inside with Jaden Osbury in the slot and Kingston coming off the edge as the Viper, none of those things would shock me. I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm very fascinated to see what they do in this game with that personnel. Because you'd think they're probably not just going to line up in their base defense. They're going to give some different wrinkles. And I'm curious to see what those are. Very curious to see what those are. Number 3, Trev, this is an easy one, dude. I'm going to kick it to you right now. You've watched a lot of this Navy team. It's tackle well. Don't give them extra yards. Wherever they get the ball, they go down. That is fullbacks can't get extra yards after the tackle. You can't let the slots catch and run. You can't let receivers catch and run. You've got to tackle. This has got to be a great, fundamentally sound tackling game for Notre Dame. No extra yards. Make them earn everything. No cheap yards.
Notre Dame's linebackers did a really good job against Georgia Tech of not allowing those extra 1 to 2 yards on that additional push. They played with really great leg drive and finish tackles, which is one thing that they're going to have to do again against Navy. Now, I will say Navy doesn't have a lot of guys that are just able to make people miss blatantly in the open field, not like a Jeremiah Love, not like a Jadarian Price, but what their offense does a really good job of is getting players out of position. So they're able to make extra play and get extra yardage on plays by breaking tackles of guys who are caught reaching, right? And guys not bringing their feet with them when they tackle. You saw that a lot against Memphis, right? You got to see them generate a lot of those missed tackles because they're going up and matching up against guys who are out of position. Notre Dame throughout the season has honestly been a fairly solid open field tackling team. And none is going to be more true than what they're going to have to do on Saturday, because this is a Navy team that can hurt you in many different ways. They're very fast in how they attack the perimeter. They do a lot of misdirection things. So again, all of that discipline, dominating in the trenches, yes, that all has to work. You got to be able to tackle well. Have to be able to tackle well in space, man.
Dude, you cannot be in a situation where you read it perfectly and you're right there in space and you've got the slot back keyed up for a 2-yard loss and then you miss them. I mean, we saw that last week, right? I mean,
we did.
You said they tackled really well later in the game. And Jaden Osbury's stop on that second down reverse completely changed the game. Vince and I broke that down upon further review. It's 21-7, late third quarter. They get the ball to one of their dynamic athletes on a stuff that's been hurting people all year, and it's him and Jaden Osbury in space. He makes Jaden miss. It's 21-14, late in the third quarter. Jaden does a phenomenal job, comes to balance, doesn't overplay it, has a nice inside-out position, and forces the guy to basically try to make a move. But Jaden's like, I'm going wherever you're going, stones him, and then kind of power drives him a little bit, which I thought was awesome. You know what I mean? And it was a statement play. And then, of course, next play, they don't get it. Kick a field goal, gets blocked, and it gets ball game. Right? That was such a huge play. It's nothing more devastating than you've got the right call, you're in the right position, and you miss on the tackle. And then that happened early, because you had Christian Gray and it was Christian Gray and Jordan Clark, or Christian Gray and Xavier Watts missed a tackle. Xavier had a missed tackle early in the game. You can't allow those things to kind of happen. This is not a team you want to give up extra yards to. If it's 2nd and 8 and you got a chance for a -2 or a 0, you've got to get the -2 or 0. You can't let them fall forward for 4 yards, and next thing you know, it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 4 or whatever the case may be. If it's 3rd and 5 and you hit that quarterback at the line of scrimmage, you can't let them fall forward for 3 yards, because at 4th and 5, they're probably punting. At 4th and 2, they're probably going for it. You know what I mean? Those things are huge. You've got to tackle well, and you've got to be physical at the point of attack. And that's something that Marcus Freeman talked about after the game, and I think that was correct. This is one of the most physical tackling games we've seen from Notre Dame. When they were hitting Georgia Tech guys after the first quarter, they were hitting them and they were going down right where they got hit. And that was a good to see. And then the last one, Trevor, and this is one we hinted at the last couple of days, is going to be important in this game. Navy's probably going to rip off a couple big plays, whether it's a fullback trap or a pass play or something. They're going to get it, but it's got to be very limited. The key number 4 isn't no big plays. It's just limit the big plays. They get a few of them. It is what it is, but you've got to limit it. You've got to really limit the kind of big plays. And when they do get big plays, you've got to make sure they're not scoring plays. Make them earn everything they get. So that's going to be my final key when it comes to Notre Dame defense, Trevor, which, again, we're going to be a little shorter on keys to victory on this because we spent so much time kind of breaking down defending the triple option or breaking down the Navy option yesterday and the day before. But these are very important keys. Limit the big plays. I don't think this team is good enough against this defense to just go on some of the methodical 10, 12 play drives. They might go early as Notre Dame feels their way. That's kind of what we've seen Notre Dame do recently is they give up a couple of those early. But once Notre Dame gets you figured out, you're not – teams haven't so far been able to go on those long drives. As long as you're disciplined, as long as you're aggressive, as long as you tackle well, they're not going to do that in this game either. So what you've got to make sure you do is don't give up a lot of big plays. Have to be very, very limited on the number of big plays you give up in this game.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot this week, man, around when you just play a good offense and you play an explosive offense, as awesome as it would be to watch. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, right? But it's really hard to say that Notre Dame's defense is just going to shut them down in any aspect that they want to do. Again, I would love to see that, but Navy is a really good offense. So if you can just keep it limited, to your point. And my last key that I'll throw in a little nugget here, kind of similar to what I talked about on the offensive side, you got to win on early downs against Navy. Win on early downs because they're not a great football team at converting third downs. I think they're at 41.5% on the season, which puts them around 55th, I think. So winning early, win early on first down, generate disruptive plays in the backfield on first and second down, and put them into an obvious situation where they can't. If Navy gets into 3rd and 2, their entire playbook is open. Their entire playbook is open.
3rd and 5,
yeah,
honestly, kind of has them at almost their entire playbook.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to be in some 3rd and long situations, no question.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give up the big plays, Trevor, you never get to that, to your
100%,
point, right?
100%.
And part of the reason Navy's offense, and this is a great point you're talking about, part of the reason Navy's offense has been so good, despite being not good on 3rd down, is because they haven't needed to get to 3rd down because they're such a big play offense. That's a great point, is get them by limiting big plays. This is what you're saying. By limiting big plays and be having early down success, which gets to the 3 keys we talked about, puts them in 3rd down situations that they just haven't been great at this year. Now, part of the thing about Navy's 3rd down offense too is Navy doesn't always look to get a first down on 3rd down. People have to understand that a little bit too, because sometimes if they're in 3rd and 8 and it's in a position where they're going to be in a potential 4th down situation, they'll go for it. And on the season, they're 6 of 7 on 4th down. So but again, that gets back to being aggressive. If it's 3rd and 5 and they run a play and you can get a -2, now all of a sudden they're not going for it on 4th down. But the more times you get them into those 3rd down situations, Trevor, the better it's going to be for your defense. But if you're giving up a lot of big plays and just chunk play after chunk play, whether it's because of scheme, blown assignment, missed tackles, whatever the case may be, then you're going to have a lot harder time stopping this Navy offense. A lot harder time. And that's what Memphis was. I mean, early, shut down, stone in the run, and then boom, seam route, boom, wheel route, boom, quarterback takes off up the sideline on a play where I think he broke a tackle like it couple yards down the field, if I remember correctly, that first long touchdown run that Blake Horvath had. And that's exactly what killed Memphis, is just big plays. They just ripped them with big plays in that game. Just big play after big play. They'd like stone them, big play. Stone them, big play. Stone them, big play. And Notre Dame can't allow that to happen. Just can't allow that to happen. That's going to be a big key. So, Trevor, that's going to do it for the defensive keys to victory, folks. Before we get into our predictions, I want you to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this podcast, give us a 5-star review, and as always, sign up for the message boards at boards.oxbreakdown.com.